Maury figures, both Democrats of Alabama, and the Congressman Jonathan Jackson, Democrat of Illinois, and son of civil rights icon, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who is also with us today. First of all, let me thank you all for being with us. Let me start with you, Congresswoman Sewell. You're from Selma, and you grew up here, and you watched it unfold all your life. You were surrounded by people that had fought the fight, and you were part of the fruit that they bore. Tell us how you felt today, particularly when a lot of what they fought for is under assault.
Well, first of all, Rev, it's great to be with you and great to be with my colleagues on this, the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Yes, I'm a daughter of Selma. I grew up in the historic Brown Chapel AME Church. And so year after year, those foot soldiers would come back, even before it was popular, to commemorate what happened on Bloody Sunday. You know, if we don't tell our history, others will tell it, and they may not get it right. And it was important to those foot soldiers to remind America of what happened on Bloody Sunday. And you are absolutely right. This year felt different. This 60th anniversary was an opportunity for us to remember and to reflect, but it also was a call to action. We are facing challenging times when many of the civil rights and voting rights that were hard fought right here in Alabama are being attacked and under assault. The Voting Rights Act used to be very bipartisan. It was reauthorized five times under three Republican presidents, and most recently by George W. Bush in 2006. And you will remember on the 50th anniversary, he came back. He and Laura Bush came back along with President Obama and Mrs. Obama. And so it is scary that the gains that were made have really been under assault. It goes to show you that progress is elusive, and every generation has to fight to hold on to the progress that we've made, lest we lose it. But I believe that Selma is still now, it's still relevant. The people who came and walked in Selma and marched in Selma, they were strategists and tacticians. They didn't just happen upon Selma, Alabama. And so I think in this time of challenge, we can find inspiration from the roadmap, the playbook, if you will, of those foot soldiers.
And those foot soldiers caused, your family's been involved, Congressman, figures, for all of your life, and you are now holding that banner, the baton in your hand, as a representative in Alabama, a red state that has always been an uphill battle. You're continuing to fight now for some of the things that we thought was resolved: voting rights, civil rights, the respect of people's diversity, inclusion, and the whole idea of equality. How do you in your generation look at this, and how do you see this day in that context?
Yeah, you first have to be mindful and grateful for the sacrifices that were made for you, for the people that came before you, the people that marched across that bridge, John Lewis, Amelia Boynton Robinson, and others, for us to be able to have that vote. I would not be here without Selma, Alabama. I don't think any of us would be here without Selma, Alabama. But now it is clear that it's up to the next generation. When I was growing up as a child, you could not have convinced me in the late 80s and throughout the 90s and early 2000s that I would have to sit here one day and actually be fearful of us losing the rights that we learned about in the history books. But here we are. We're seeing this administration roll back protections. We're seeing this administration through policies that they're putting in place, call into question things as nonpartisan and things we should just be unanimously agreeing upon, like the Tuskegee Airmen's role in this history, EEOC protections that have been in place since the early 60s, funding to HBCU land-grant colleges while not touching non-HBCU land-grant college funding. And just most recently, we just saw, and Congresswoman Terry Sewell and I just had to do a press conference in Montgomery outside the Freedom Ride Museum, because that bus station where John Lewis was almost killed with other Freedom Riders has been listed by DOJ as a building for sale. And so my generation...
Listed by DOJ?
Oh, yeah.
Listed by DOJ
as a building for sale.
As for sale. And this is the building where John Lewis and other Freedom Riders and white men and women who were on that trip with them were beaten almost, to death. And that history is what we have to protect, and that burden falls to my generation. And we have to be serious about understanding what we are seeing this administration do in the context of civil rights and make sure that we're doing everything to educate and motivate people to get out and take advantage of the rights that were secured just outside that door coming across the Edmund Pettus Bridge 60 years ago.
Congressman Jackson, you are from Chicago, but you're rooted here in Selma. In fact, your father, who was here with us today, despite the fact he has health concerns, he was here today, and you wheeled him across that bridge as you have walked across that bridge within many years. And you, who was doing very well as an entrepreneur, decided you were going into public service and have done that all with a kind of passion that we have not seen in a long time. Tell us how you feel sitting there watching your father and then watching your generation as they now are facing some of the obstacles they face.
Well, thank you for having me on, Uncle Al. My first thought is the Civil Rights Act, 1965. I'm born in 1966. I'm the first generation of African Americans that was born with equal rights. After 346 years, 1619 to 1965, I'm the first generation. So as I get older, it strikes me even more hard. And to know that after the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, that my children have less rights than I've had my entire life growing up. There's been a reversal, a rollback in time. When the president attacks diversity, equity, inclusion, these are aspirational goals. These aren't laws. If this is something that a corporation wants to do to expand access and opportunity for their clients and to create shareholder values and to express freedom of speech, they should be able to retain those values. E pluribus unum. Out of many, we are one. That's a call for diversity. 14th Amendment, equal protection. That's a call to our values. Inclusion, curb cuts for those that have different abilities, and accessibility for those that need glasses and hearing aids. These are American values.
Right.
So it's just absolutely irrational, and it's also very much race-based to knock our children out of job opportunities and employment opportunities and educational opportunities. So being here today just gave me, there was two sides to that bridge. One was looking back, and the other is looking forward, because we crossed that bridge. We won, and we're going to continue to win, and we're going to win again. But the fight is on.
We won. Terry Sewell, you're a congresswoman. You grew up where Amelia Boykin and others were tear gassed on that bridge we walked across, beaten by Alabama state troopers, yet you're a member of Congress, which was unthinkable 60 years ago. And as you are in the community and have grown up among those that were the original foot soldiers, what can you say today to those of us that are complaining about the retrenchment of a lot of those rights? What should we take from this day?
I think that what I'd like for folks to take is an opportunity to reflect on the significance of what happened 60 years ago, but to rededicate ourselves to the challenge and to the cause for which those marchers march. It was a call to action in my view. I am honored every day, and it's never, ever lost on me that I get to walk the halls of Congress as Alabama's first black congresswoman, because Amelia Boynton Robinson dared to run in 1964 for this very same seat with 1% of the vote. And, you know, it's because of our foremothers and our forefathers, the sacrifices that they made, that all of us who are sitting here, literally the Voting Rights Act of 1965 changed the color of elected office in America. And I think that what I hope people will take from it is that because progress is so elusive, we have to fight like hell to hold on to the progress that we've made and to try to advance it. And it was Coretta Scott King who said that freedom is never won in just one generation. It's fought in every generation. And so this is our battle cry, our opportunity to pick up that mantle and carry it forward. And that baton is a treasured baton. And it's not about one leg of a race. It's about a lifetime.
Right.
And so, you know, for us, I think that our struggle has always been one step forward, 5 steps back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. But I do believe that in this time of challenge and strife, we should learn from our forefathers and foremothers that civil disobedience works, that a call to action and collective voices raising up. Public sentiment does matter. We've seen that even with this administration. When we actually fought back for the Tuskegee Airmen, they had to relinquish. We're doing the same when it comes to the Freedom Rides Museum. And so I really believe that rarely does change come from the halls of Congress. It bubbles up from grassroots activism. You know that, Rev. And so, it was a beautiful sight today to see so many young and old, thousands here in Selma again, as a reminder, as a living testament for the power of community activism, grassroots activism. And so, I know that I will not be the last Black woman to walk the halls of Congress to represent Alabama, but we don't want the time period between those to be too long.
Congressman Figgers, one of the things that strikes me is that a lot of people don't realize that there were many people of different races that fought in this struggle in Alabama that helped change the nation. We had whites as well as blacks. We had the 2 Jews and a black killed fighting for voting rights. We had Viola Luisa, who was an Italian woman from Michigan, wife of a labor leader. Talk about how we're beginning to see, even if we don't across racial lines come and embrace each other, we're backing into each other because we're all under assault by an administration that is fighting labor, that is fighting civil rights, that is fighting rights of people to choose who they love. Talk about the expansive role of all communities in this fight. This is not just a black day.
Look, I think it gets at the core of what Congresswoman Sewell and I often talk about, is that civil rights history is not just black history. The civil rights movement was not just a black movement. In fact, I think a strong argument can be made that the outcomes of the civil rights movement were not, for black people, because black people knew what was being done to them was wrong. They knew it wasn't right for them to be denied places to go eat and not having the right to vote. We needed to educate other people that it was wrong as well and get those protections. But it was an American movement. It was an American movement at the end of the day. And what this administration is doing is harming all Americans as well. And so in the context of them, attacking voting rights, in the context of them coming at civil rights history, they are indeed opening up doors of opportunity for them to do other things. And these are the shiny objects. So we can't lose sight of what they're doing just by looking at the shiny objects of the National Freedom Rides Museum or other things that they're doing. Because behind the scenes, we know that they're working on a budget that's going to do a lot more damage than the closing of a museum. We know that they're working on reconciliation that's going to pull back benefits that's going to disproportionately hit a lot of people, people of color, poor people, people of all races. They're going to pull back Medicaid, something that's going to hit people of all races. In fact, it's going to hit more white people than black people in this country.
Many of those who voted for this administration.
Absolutely, it will.
I'm going to have to go to break. I know you have to leave, but I have some questions for Jonathan Jackson, and I'm not letting Congresswoman Sewell leave either. Congressman Shamari Figgers, thank you for joining us, and we're asking Representatives Terry Sewell and Jonathan Jackson to stay with us when we come back.